Our first signs of yeast clock back to the time of the Egyptians. The Egyptians first used yeast to make bread. But they ignored the yeast fermentation process, the process in which the yeast chemical reaction causes the bread to rise, and they believed the chemical reaction to be a miracle. Bread was born the day that man realized that, with yeast, bread could rise and its flavor and texture would be improved. In the 1st century AD, it is said that the first bread was made in Gaul and Iberia using beer foam. Thanks to French scientist Louis Pasteur, we now know that yeast is not only the cause of the bread to rise, but also forms the bread's aromas and flavors. Saccharomyces cerevisiae is proven the best way to make dough rise, hence its name, baker's yeast. Did you know there's over 500 different species of yeasts? Here are just a few. Torla, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, Saccharomyces pastorinus, Candida tropicalis, Candida parapacilus, Candida glabrata, Trichosporum, Brettanomyces brulexis. Those are just the 8 of over 500 different species of yeasts. The human body maintains a balance between its good and bad strains of bacteria and yeast colonies. Together, these make up our microbes. Our microbiome is a community of microorganisms living inside our bodies and on our skin. This balance can be thrown off and result in an overgrowth of yeast, also known as a yeast infection. A yeast infection is an overgrowth of yeast. This is a type of fungus called Candida. There are over 20 different strains of Candida. Yeast infections can occur on the skin, nails, in the folds of skin, or in the digestive tract. A yeast infection in your mouth is called thrush. Another familiar indication is diaper rash. The most common is feminine yeast infection. All of these are often itchy and painful. Many times the yeast colonies are visible with the naked eye as a white patch inside the mouth or a bright red rash on the skin. A round of antibiotics may cause the yeast infection. Because the antibiotics so effective wipe out both the good and the bad bacteria, this leaves room for the Candida to grow unchecked. After you complete your antibiotics, your doctor may recommend taking a probiotic to encourage the regrowth of the good strains of bacteria. Yeast infection may be indicative of other problems. A yeast infection may be an indicator of an underlying condition like pregnancy or uncontrolled disease such as diabetes or HIV. People who live a full life of stress, or those who eat too much refined sugar or consume too much alcohol, may have an undergrowth of yeast in their intestines. This type of growth may cause bloating and excessive gas. If you think you might have a yeast infection, your doctor can help. Yeast infections are often treated with antifungal medicine since antibiotics won't cure a yeast infection. Yeast extract is basically just broken down yeast in liquid form. Ever heard of Marmite or Vegemite? Marmite and Vegemite are basically spreadable treats. They're yeast extract. Marmite is from England and Vegemite is from Australia.
It smells like a glass of red wine that's been left out for like 2 hours.
Going for it. The Egyptians used the first yeast to make bread, but that miracle did need to be spread. Yeast is everywhere now. It lines our store shelves. It is in our cereals. It's in our soups, our beers, our wines. Yeast is everywhere. The world needs it. And I believe we will keep using it for generations to come.